Thank you for tuning in to the Game Changer 00100 show. I am your host, Game Changer. On this show, it is my objective to use the red pill to promote stronger individuals, stronger families, stronger communities, and then stronger nations. On this show, I'm going to be disproving the myth of if you build it, they will come. Now, as this applies to the black community, what they mean, simply put, is that if black men were to build a functioning black community, then black women will come and become the submissive Claire Huxtable types that they really want to be. They're just doing it because of lack of building. I want to say that this is entirely and utterly false. In fact, I'm going to prove it right now. But before I get into that, actually, I shouldn't say right now, but before I get into that, I want to address Sergeant Willie P. because he's the one that really brought this counter argument up, and it's the worst one I have ever heard in my life. That, if black men were to build something, it will come. Black women will fall in line, and after years of a certain behavior pattern, that they'll just become the exact opposite of what they were groomed to be all their lives. I think that that's a false narrative. Sergeant Willie P said, and he said this several times in his videos, and even though he will later say things that contradict it and show that he don't actually believe it, he still falls back to this. He says black women, would work out if there were more black owned gyms in the community, or just by and large. Like, you have a group of people who are unhealthy and overweight that are just yearning. They're just yearning to hit the gym. They're just yearning to hit that treadmill. They're just yearning to. But they go to a 24-hour fitness or Fitness 19 or Family Fitness, or California Fitness. They just walk there and they don't see a black owned sign, and then they just walk away and they go to Kentucky Fried Chicken instead. Now, I want to remind you that Kentucky Fried Chicken also does not have a black owned sign. Neither does the McDonald's, Frito-Lay, where they get the Doritos and Cheetos and Cheese Whiz and shit like that. That also doesn't have a black owned sign. None of the places that you get the bad shit from, the fattening shit from, has a black owned sign. I mean, the Weave store does not have a black owned sign, yet they find their way there. They never use the excuse, "Oh, it's not black owned, therefore I'm not going to buy Weave." They never say that, do they? Sergeant Willie P. But interesting enough, they say that about gyms of all places. They say that about Whole Foods of all places. You don't think that that's a little bit strange, Sergeant Willie P? So, that's neither here nor there. I don't want to make this show about Sergeant Willie P. He created this narrative. It's very weird. It's very fucked up, and he fucked up this section of YouTube with that, because then what followed was Cynthia G saying shit like, "Oh, well, basically you gave them an excuse to do what they wanted to do. We don't have to respect you because you didn't build anything." Like, really? What the fuck? You're losing sight of cause and effect. So I'm going to put things back into perspective and show and actually prove why that is a falsehood. Okay, on your screen you see, I think his name is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And basically how this works is you start at the bottom and you cannot get to the next level until you have mastered the one beneath it. So, for example, at the very bottom you have food, water, warmth, and rest. These are basic needs. These are this is what you need to live. And until you have met these needs, you cannot move to the second level, which is security and safety. I mean, if you're hungry, you're not secure, nor are you focused on it, nor are you concerned with your psychological need for security and safety, because you don't have any damn food, You don't have any food, water, warmth, and rest. So who in the fuck is thinking about safety at that point? If somebody comes and capture you, you'll probably think it's welcome, as long as they have food, water, warmth, and rest. Is what it is. Okay, so the next one is security and safety. Now, once a person feels secure and safe in their community, you can call 911. You don't have to worry about bandit, rape gangs, or shit like that. Once that need is taken care of, you can move on to the next one. The next one is belongingness and love needs. Intimate relationship, friends, sex isn't listed, but that may or may not be included in that depending on the individual. However, this is a community need. This is of the two, at least for men, or of the ones mentioned thus far. This is the one that requires someone else. A man can provide his own food. He can hunt for his own food. He can, search for his own water, warmth, rest. In an environment that has these things available to him. And the only thing that would stop him is his own efforts. So he can gather these things for himself. As well as security, he can provide his own security, reasonably speaking. However, belongingness, love, needs, intimate relationship, this requires somebody else. Particularly for straight men, this requires a woman. In fact, one woman, through the ability to birth children, can fulfill all of these psychological needs, can fulfill all of them. And then once that's fulfilled in a man, he can go on to the next two, which is esteem needs, prestige, and feeling of accomplishments. And that's where the building starts. People build for a sense of accomplishment. They build so they can say, look, this is my contribution to the world. I have created, I am a founding father of the United States of America. Now, let's take a look. Since I brought that up, let's use the founding fathers of the United States of America for an example. These are guys that had their, primary needs met. They had their psychological needs, food, water, warmth, the rest. They had all that. They lived in a relatively safe nation of, the British colonial state of America. They were relatively safe, as safe as any other nation. They all had wives, and some of them even have wives, mistresses. I know Thomas Jefferson did. That's for damn sure. I know George Washington did. That's for damn sure. So they had that basic need fulfilled. So with all of those basic needs fulfilled, what did they do? They went for the feeling of accomplishment. They wanted to create their own nation. They wanted a capital building, named after, or the capital of the country named after them. They wanted all this stuff. These guys were already rich. It wasn't about money, and it damn sure wasn't about pussy. They have moved beyond that. They already had those needs fulfilled. Now they're on the next level shit. And then self-actualization. Now, I want to stop right there on the esteem needs, but I'm just going to read this just for the sake of completion. Self-actualization, achieving one's full potential, including creative activities. And yeah, there's a lot of great discoveries that came through that. That would be more of the Benjamin Franklin's, the inventors and things like that. Once again, he had all of his below needs met. And then he went, for the greater needs. And then that's when, you start getting the actual real shit. That's when you start getting the real building going on. That's when, you start getting the people who leave Harvard to make, Facebook or to make Microsoft and shit like that's when the real shit. That's when the people want their full potential met, through creative hobbies. Because believe it or not, that these things starts off as hobbies, the things that they like to do. But this can only be completed if and only, there are exceptions, don't get me wrong, but this primarily can only be completed if and only if the needs below it are complete. Now, how does that relate to the whole if you build it, they will come situation? Or how does this disprove it? Well, as many of you may have already figured out, the belongingness and love needs intimate relationship needs are in the middle. They're right below where the building begins. So, just like you need food, water, warmth, and rest before you can reach the other levels, you need the love and belongingness before you can reach the building shit. Therefore, you cannot build until they come. SWP and anybody else that makes that argument. You cannot build until this this middle need is taken care of. Once again, there are exceptions, but generally speaking, when you think about history and the people who actually build, who actually change the landscape, the people who actually have months named after them or days of the week named after them, these are married men. Or these are fucking, warlords who had like thousands of wives before they went and conquered China or some shit like that. These are not people who just have food, warmth, and rest, security, and safety. No, these are people who actually have that need fulfilled, and then they go to meet their higher needs. That's where the building is. That's where the building goes. Now, it doesn't say that you need these things. It basically means you mastered these needs. So, there's several ways you can master something. You can either, master it because you have an abundance of it, or you can master it because you can do without it. Meaning, if I wanted to master my hunger, I can either, master my life to where I have an abundance of food, or I master it to where I need very little food to survive. Either way, that need is taken care of and I can move on to the next. So, sense of belongingness and love. Men, particularly like the MGTOW men, the monks and shit like that, they can say, okay, I've mastered my need for belongingness, love, intimate relationships, and even friends to a lesser extent, by training myself not to need that. And some of them actually move on to the next level. Most kind of get stuck there. Some of them just have a lot of friends, and they move to the next level and say, okay, I have a lot of friends, and I'm going to build now. I'm going to become a big brother. I'm going to start my own nonprofit. So there's many ways to master that, but the best way as far as a community goes, because remember that this is about self-fulfillment, as far as a community goes, is men and women get together and create positive intimate relationships. Once this is achieved, this is in the middle, once this is achieved, then the building will begin. You get it, Sergeant Willie P? You have to reach this level. You have to master this level before the building can begin. A bunch of single guys do not go out and build society. I mean, they do very little. They do enough to maintain the lower branches. Like they're out building. Somebody pays them to build, and they meet their need for food, water, warmth, and rest, security, and safety. Like they'll build enough for that, but that's not them meeting their esteem needs. That's them meeting their safety needs and their basic needs. If you want the guys to actually build, then they have to master the middle portion of the pyramid. So, sorry I had to disprove it, but they have been holding on to this for too long. And you have Sergeant Willie P saying, if you build more gyms, they will cut. Anybody who works, Sergeant Willie P says he works out, and I believe him. But anybody who works out and they come across somebody who's out of shape, and they say, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna work out," but you don't really take them seriously, because whatever the but is, once that is taken care of, they'll think of something else and something else and something else. It's basically an excuse not to work out. And the biggest excuse I've ever heard anybody say came from a person who worked out, and that is because the gyms are not black owned. The schools are not black owned, nigga. Are they illiterate? What the fuck? going off on a tangent. Anyway, it has been disproven. The whole if you build it, they will come thing has been disproven simply because of cause and effect. You cannot properly and completely build it until they come. This is Game Changer 00100, and I'm out.